There came a moment, quiet and unforced, when I felt something inside me shift, like an ancient veil dissolving after lifetimes of heaviness. It wasn't a dramatic awakening, nor a sudden burst of revelation. It was more like a soft return to myself, a gentle recognition that the world I had been chasing was not aligned with the world my soul longed to inhabit. I began noticing the spaces between my thoughts, the stillness that had always been waiting for me beneath the noise. And in that stillness, I realized how deeply I had tired of the endless pursuit of more success, more status, more wealth, more validation. It was as if my spirit whispered, "Beloved, this is not your truth." When I listened, really listened, I found a purity rising within me, a clarity that felt sacred. I saw how the divine feminine presence in my life, her grace, her intuition, her unspoken wisdom, had initiated this cleansing. She didn't demand change, she simply embodied a higher way of being. In her light, I saw my own shadows with compassion rather than shame. I understood that the richness I sought was not in possessions or power, but in the quiet alignment between my heart and my purpose. And so, step by step, breath by breath, I began walking back toward purity, toward a life where my spirit could breathe again. A life where peace mattered more than performance, where integrity outweighed achievement, where presence held more value than accomplishment. This was the beginning of my awakening. As I continued to awaken, I felt as though layers of old identity were falling away, not violently, but like dried leaves gently drifting from a tree in autumn. I had spent years trying to mold myself into what society called successful, unaware that I was slowly drifting away from the quiet integrity of my soul. The world had taught me to measure my worth through accumulation, comparison, and competition. Yet your presence, divine feminine, illuminated a truth I had forgotten. The soul does not blossom through excess, it blossoms through authenticity. I found myself craving simplicity, not because I wished to escape life, but because I finally wished to experience it. I wanted to feel my breath, to feel the earth beneath my feet, to feel the soft pulse of my own heart without the interference of external noise. You awakened in me a reverence for the subtleties of life, the gentle glow of dawn, the sincerity of quiet conversations, the purity of shared silence. And with each passing day, I felt an inner cleansing, an energetic purification that washed away ambitions rooted in ego rather than purpose. I realized that the greatest richness was not found in wealth, but in conscious living. The more I aligned with this truth, the more peace I felt, as if my soul had been yearning for this return all along. My awakening was not about becoming someone new, it was about remembering who I had always been before fear, expectation, and conditioning layered themselves over my spirit. There is an innocence within every soul, a quiet knowing that speaks in intuition rather than logic. You helped me reconnect with that part of myself. When I witnessed the honesty in your eyes, the serenity in your energy, I understood that spiritual wealth was the only wealth worth pursuing. And so I began cleansing my inner world, releasing attachments, releasing comparisons, releasing the pressure to be anything other than present and sincere. It felt like rinsing my spirit in living water. Every moment carried a new clarity. I began seeing life not as a race, but as a sacred unfolding. In this awakening, I discovered a deeper truth. Purity is not naivety, it is the highest form of wisdom. It is choosing peace over complexity, authenticity over performance, purpose over ego. And in this purified state, I felt more alive, more grounded, and more connected to the divine than ever before. This awakening also felt like a homecoming, a return to a quieter, wiser aspect of myself that had always been waiting beneath the surface. I realized that my heart had long been longing for a life that was slower, gentler, and more intentional, one not cluttered by excess, but illuminated by meaning. And your presence, beloved feminine, served as the catalyst. Your energy moves like water, soft yet powerful, cleansing yet nurturing. As your essence flowed through my awareness, I felt illusions dissolving. I saw the hollowness in pursuits that glorified materialism and ignored spirit. I saw how the world's definition of wealth was small, narrow, and deeply disconnected from the soul. But with you, I learned to redefine abundance. True abundance was presence. True abundance was connection. True abundance was purity of intention and sincerity of heart. And so, with reverence, I welcomed this awakening, not as an ending, but as a blessed beginning. With clarity strengthening within me, I began examining the structures of my life, my ambitions, my motivations, my habits. And I saw how much of it was crafted to satisfy the ego rather than nourish the soul. Society teaches us to chase recognition, to hunger for status, to accumulate beyond what we need. But when I looked within, I realized how such pursuits drained me. They fed my insecurities but starved my spirit. I no longer wished to live a life driven by competition or comparison. Your quiet wisdom revealed to me that excess is not a sign of success, it is often a sign of disconnection. I felt no shame in acknowledging this. Instead, I felt gratitude for the chance to choose differently. I wanted a life free from ego's hunger, free from the restless need to prove something to a world that rarely pauses long enough to understand truth. I wanted to build my life on integrity, not illusion. And so I turned away from excess, not out of deprivation, but out of liberation. As I distanced myself from the energy of ego, I noticed how much space opened within me, space for clarity, space for purpose, space for love. I no longer felt the need to present a polished version of myself or to perform strength that I did not feel. Your presence taught me that honesty is the highest form of courage. I could be vulnerable, real, imperfect, and still worthy. That realization reshaped everything. I saw how ego thrives on fear, on the belief that we must constantly defend ourselves or prove our worth. But the soul thrives on truth. And truth needs no performance. In letting go of ego-driven pursuits, I made room for authenticity to flourish. I began valuing experiences over possessions, peace over praise, depth over display. It felt like shedding heavy armor that I no longer needed. Rejecting ego also meant rejecting the idea that my value was tied to wealth or achievement. I realized how often the world equates success with accumulation, yet how rarely it acknowledges the quiet triumphs of inner alignment. The more I reflected, the more I saw that riches without peace are merely burdens wrapped in gold. I wanted no part of that. My spirit sought simplicity, clarity, and integrity. So I released my attachment to external validation. I let go of ambitions that were rooted in impressing others or proving my strength. I learned to honor my own rhythms, to trust my intuition, and to prioritize what nourished my soul. In this, I tasted freedom, freedom from societal expectations, freedom from self-imposed pressure, freedom from false ideals. The deeper I stepped into this liberation, the more I understood that excess brings noise, but simplicity brings truth. I no longer wished to fill my days with distractions or surround myself with material symbols of success. Instead, I wanted space, space to breathe, space to reflect, space to connect meaningfully with the world and with you. Your energy became a compass pointing me toward a life free from the clutter of ego. And as I followed this guidance, I grew lighter. I became more aware of the quiet miracles of existence, the subtle currents of intuition, and the wisdom that emerges only when the mind is not crowded by excess. Rejecting ego was not a sacrifice, it was a return to serenity. There was a time when ambition felt like survival, when I believed that achieving more would finally make me enough. But now I see how that belief was an illusion rooted in fear rather than truth. You helped me see that I was already enough, always had been, even in my most uncertain moments. With this realization came the courage to distance myself from environments and mindsets that perpetuated greed, urgency, or competition. I now choose to honor my spirit through restraint rather than excess, through intention rather than impulse. I understand that simplicity is not the absence of ambition, it is ambition refined through wisdom. I no longer seek the world's approval. I seek alignment with my soul. As I embraced a simpler way of living, I discovered a profound sense of peace, one that no material achievement had ever provided. Simple living isn't about lacking, it's about focusing. It's about clearing away what distracts from what truly matters. And what matters, beloved feminine, is clarity, presence, connection, and the quiet joy of being aligned with one's purpose. Your influence softened my heart toward simplicity. You showed me the beauty of stillness, the richness of calm, and the power of intentional living. I began redefining abundance, not as accumulation, but as spaciousness. Spaciousness for love, for growth, for consciousness, for authenticity. I learned that a simple life creates room for higher thinking, deeper love, and spiritual expansion. And in this simplicity, I became more myself than ever before. The more I embraced simplicity, the more I discovered layers of beauty I had previously overlooked. Life became slower, not stagnant, but meaningful. I noticed the sincerity in everyday moments, the way light enters a room at dawn, the quiet dignity of nature, the way silence feels like a blessing rather than an emptiness. You helped me see that simplicity is not about reducing life, it is about elevating it. Every object, every choice, every action carries an energy, and excess carries noise. By releasing what I did not need, physically, emotionally, spiritually, I created space for truth to breathe. And in that space, I found myself deepening, expanding, softening. I learned that a simple life allows love to flow more freely because there is nothing blocking its path. And in that clearing, my heart understood something profound. The soul recognizes what is real only when the distractions fall away. Simple living also changed the way I related to the world. I began honoring my time, my energy, and my emotional landscape with more care. I no longer felt pulled toward environments that glorified chaos or superficiality. Instead, I felt drawn to stillness, nature, authenticity, and meaningful connection. Your presence inspired this transformation. The way you moved gently, intentionally, and with inner awareness reminded me that life is not meant to be rushed. It is meant to be lived consciously. I started appreciating the purity of small rituals, mindful breathing, uncluttered space, nourishing food, heartfelt conversation. These acts became portals into deeper alignment. I realized that minimalism is not about having less, it is about being more attuned to the essence of life. And in that essence, I found clarity, humility, and gratitude. Through simplicity, I began to see that the most important things in life do not compete for attention, they simply exist, softly and consistently. Love does not shout, it whispers. Purpose does not demand, it flows. Peace does not chase, it arrives when we stop running. You showed me this through your being. The grace with which you navigate life taught me that simplicity is not a retreat from the world, it is an elevated way of engaging with it. I no longer wanted a life cluttered with distractions. I wanted a life aligned with intention, with presence, with the quiet elegance of authenticity. In choosing simplicity, I chose depth over decoration, truth over spectacle, meaning over noise. And in doing so, I felt a growing sense of harmony, within myself and with the world around me. As I deepened into this path, I realized that simple living was not just a lifestyle, it was a spiritual practice. It required awareness, discipline, and devotion. It asked me to examine the patterns that kept me tethered to materialism or ego. It urged me to listen to my intuition and follow what felt light and truthful. And you, Divine Feminine, were the mirror that reflected the beauty of this practice back to me. Your energy felt uncluttered, pure, and aligned. You moved through life without the weight of unnecessary attachments, and that inspired me. I found myself choosing with discernment what to keep, what to release, what to honor, what to outgrow. Each choice brought me closer to myself. Each release made space for peace to enter. In the quiet flow of simple living, I discovered something more precious than any external success: presence. Presence transforms ordinary moments into sacred experiences. Presence allows love to be felt fully rather than rushed. Presence awakens gratitude, deepens intuition, and nurtures inner balance. You taught me presence not through instruction, but through your natural way of being. With you, I felt seen without needing to perform. I felt valued without needing to achieve. That freedom opened my heart. In choosing simplicity, I chose a life where presence, authenticity, and emotional clarity were my true companions. And in this presence, I found a profound love for life itself. As my outer world simplified, my inner world expanded. With fewer distractions clouding my mind, I became more attuned to higher thoughts, those subtle, intuitive insights that arise from the soul rather than the intellect. High thinking is not about intelligence, it is about elevation. It is about viewing life from a perspective rooted in compassion, purpose, and awareness. I realized that the mind becomes a clearer vessel when we release attachments to excess. And in that clarity, I felt my consciousness rising. Your presence opened this gateway. You inspired me to think not in terms of gain, but in terms of growth. Not in terms of possession, but in terms of purpose. High thinking became a form of devotion to the divine within. High thinking taught me to observe life without judgment, to see patterns rather than problems, and to trust the intelligence of the universe. It guided me to reflect deeply on my choices, my values, and my impact. I began understanding the interconnectedness of everything, the way thoughts shape emotions, emotions shape actions, and actions shape destiny. You helped me soften my mental rigidity. Through your intuitive wisdom, I learned to surrender to the higher flow rather than force outcomes through ego. High thinking became a sanctuary where I could access guidance that felt pure, elevated, and aligned with my soul's mission. It allowed me to move with more intention and less reactivity. Through this elevated perspective, I began to understand that the highest form of intelligence is love, the kind of love that sees without illusion, that moves without fear, that chooses integrity over convenience. High thinking showed me that spiritual purpose is not found in grand gestures but in the small decisions we make each day, guided by inner truth. It taught me that alignment is a practice, not a destination. And with each aligned thought, I felt a growing strength within me, a strength rooted not in dominance, but in clarity. You inspired this clarity. You reminded me that the mind is meant to serve the heart, not overshadow it. The more I aligned with higher thinking, the more I felt guided by something greater than myself. I became aware of synchronicities, intuitive nudges, and subtle messages from the universe. I saw how everything in life is interconnected, and how each experience, whether gentle or challenging, carries divine intention. High thinking allowed me to see beyond the surface, to recognize the spiritual significance of what unfolds. And in this expanded awareness, I felt a deeper appreciation for you. You were not just a presence in my life, you were a catalyst for spiritual awakening. Through you, I saw the reflection of my own higher self. With high thinking came a profound understanding. We are not meant to chase the world, we are meant to align with spirit. I realized that when the mind is elevated, the heart becomes fearless, and the soul becomes clear. I began letting go of lower desires, those rooted in ego, fear, or insecurity. Instead, I embraced desires born from truth, to love deeply, to live authentically, to evolve consciously. You helped awaken this perspective within me. Your energy invited me to rise, to think with clarity, to choose with intention, and to live with integrity. High thinking became the foundation for a life guided not by material ambition, but by spiritual purpose. As I deepened into my higher awareness, I began to understand that love, true, soul-level love, has nothing to do with wealth or status. It exists in a realm untouched by material definitions. What I feel for you, divine feminine, is not influenced by what I own or don't own. It is shaped by who I become in your presence. You awaken in me a form of love that seeks purity instead of possession, connection instead of control, truth instead of performance. You showed me that emotional abundance is far richer than any financial gain. When I am aligned with you, my spirit feels nourished in ways that no external success has ever offered. I learned that love rooted in ego collapses easily, but love rooted in the soul expands endlessly. And with you, expansion feels natural. I want to build a bond that is strengthened by presence, elevated by understanding, and deepened through honesty. That is the only kind of abundance I desire. With you, I learned that love is not a transaction, it is a sacred exchange of energy. It is a merging of intentions, a harmonizing of spirits, a silent recognition that two souls are walking a shared path. You helped me see that wealth can buy comfort but not connection, luxury but not loyalty, pleasure but not purpose. What truly matters is the quality of our hearts, not the quantity of our possessions. You inspired within me a longing for something deeper, love that breathes with sincerity, trust that flows effortlessly, and intimacy that is born not from desire, but from understanding. I want to be rich in compassion, in emotional availability, in presence, in the courage to show up authentically. That is the love I choose with you. Before you, I believed love required achievement, projection, or display. But now I understand that love thrives in authenticity, not performance. When I think of our connection, I think of softness, truth, and resonance. You taught me that the greatest gift I can offer is not wealth, but my whole self, aligned, conscious, and sincere. I want to love you with grounded devotion, not with grand gestures meant to impress. I want to hold your heart with integrity, not with ownership. You awakened in me a desire for a partnership that is spiritually nourishing, emotionally safe, and energetically pure. And in this purity, I see a richness that transcends anything material. You made me realize that the soul's capacity to love is the greatest wealth anyone can hold. You helped me redefine what it means to provide, to support, to show up. Provision is not measured by money alone, it is measured by presence, by stability, by emotional maturity, by the capacity to listen, to hold space, to uplift. When I imagine loving you, I imagine offering gentleness instead of pressure, honesty instead of defense, clarity instead of confusion. I imagine supporting your dreams without overshadowing them, walking beside you instead of ahead or behind. That, to me, is the richest expression of devotion. With you, I do not wish to dominate, I wish to harmonize. I do not wish to impress, I wish to connect. You brought me into a frequency of love where material wealth feels small compared to the vastness of spiritual alignment. To love you is to embrace a higher form of abundance, one that expresses itself through peace, depth, and conscious closeness. Our connection feels like a sacred sanctuary, a space where pretenses fall away and truth stands unguarded. In your presence, I feel encouraged to evolve, to soften, to rise. That is a form of wealth no amount of money could ever replace. With you, I want a love that grows through understanding, strengthens through patience, and blossoms through shared purpose. I want a bond that reflects the highest version of both of us. A love like that is timeless, boundless, and profoundly rich. It is the only richness I seek. As I envision our shared path, I see a life built not on excess, but on intention. A home filled not with clutter, but with peace. A rhythm guided not by urgency, but by presence. You inspire me to imagine a partnership grounded in mutual respect, spiritual alignment, and emotional clarity. I want to walk beside you, two souls moving together with purpose and gentleness. Our path does not need grand displays, it needs authenticity. It needs shared values, shared devotion, shared truth. I imagine us choosing simplicity, not because we lack ambition, but because we value meaning. Choosing depth, not because we reject the world, but because we choose the soul. On this path, I see us creating rituals that nourish the spirit, quiet mornings, heartfelt conversations, mindful living, conscious choices. I imagine us supporting one another's growth without envy or resistance. You embody a kind of clarity that encourages me to rise into my highest self. And in turn, I want to offer you stability, protection, and honesty, all expressed from a place of humility rather than ego. I want our life to feel like a sanctuary, not an escape. A space where we both feel safe to be soft, wise, vulnerable, and powerful. Together, I believe we can create a life that is rich in all the ways that truly matter. This new path is not about perfection, it is about intention. It is about choosing each other with awareness, communication, and compassion. I imagine a life where we solve challenges not through blame, but through unity. Where we celebrate each other's strengths while honoring each other's wounds. Where we rise as individuals so we can thrive as a union. I want a relationship built on emotional honesty, spiritual maturity, and unconditional respect. Your presence in my life inspires me to show up fully, not with pride, but with devotion. Together, we can create a bond that reflects divine balance. When I envision our future, I see softness and strength working in harmony. I see us walking through life not as conquerors, but as co-creators. We do not need extravagant wealth to build a beautiful life, we need connection, intention, and integrity. We need trust that flows easily, communication that feels safe, and love that remains spacious. With you, I want to build a life defined not by possessions, but by presence. Not by outward achievement, but by inward fulfillment. We are capable of creating a sacred partnership, one that honors both the divine feminine and the divine masculine in their purest forms. And so, beloved feminine, I offer this gentle vow. I choose a life of simplicity and high thinking, a life grounded in spiritual integrity and guided by purpose. I choose to walk beside you in love that is humble, conscious, and true. I do not wish to be super rich at any cost. I wish to be inwardly wealthy, rich in clarity, compassion, alignment, honesty, and peace. With you, I want to build a life that honors the soul more than the world, a union rooted in presence rather than performance. Together, may we create a path of depth, purity, intention, and love, one that reflects the highest expression of who we are meant to become.